Meeting for January 2025. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Member Causey.
Here.
Member Kaur.
Here.
Vice Chair Garshow.
Here.
Member Small.
Here.
Chair Chase.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Wonderful. We'll start today's meeting with approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
No, Madam Chair, no changes.
Then can we, I'll make a motion to approve the January 29th, 2025 agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. At this point, we'll open up the floor for audience comments on anything that's not on today's agenda. So if there's something that you'd like to speak upon today to share with the board, we're happy to hear that. If it's on the agenda, you'll have time at that item discussion piece to approach the board. Hearing none. Could we go ahead and get everybody sworn in that would like to speak later in the meeting?
Yes. Anyone who will be speaking to the board or making a presentation needs to be sworn in. Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give or present to the board is truthful? Yes, I do. Thank you.
We'll move to the approval of the minutes. We did not have a December meeting, so this would be back to our November 20th, 2024 meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review any requests for changes?
No request.
Yes. Do we have a motion?
I motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second.
November.
Roll call.
Vice Chair Garshow.
Yes.
Member Small.
Yes.
Member Causey.
Yes.
Member Kaur.
Yes.
Chair Chase.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on to action items, we have 3 action items for today, starting with action item A, case number 24098.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Brandon Berry, planner. Is a variance request associated with this plat. It has a property address of 3511 Gulf Boulevard. The applicant and owner, Jimmy Irgi of 3511 Gulf Boulevard LLC, requests recommendation of a preliminary plat for the replatting of 3511 Gulf Boulevard to 3 fee simple townhouse parcels. So you can see here a boundary and topographic survey. This shows the proposed subdivision overlaid on the survey of the property. It's a 100 by 100 lot. All of the individual lots that the property will be subdivided to do meet the zoning standards. There are no variances requested, no administrative relief is requested for this development. The applicant has an associated site plan and building permit in-house. We are actively reviewing that. They're nearing issuance. And they're seeking fee simple subdivision. In some cases, we do see the individual units themselves subdivided at the party walls with the exterior of the property retained in homeowners association ownership. This will be just a simple subdivision of the property itself. All of the property will be under the ownership of one individual, and you can see that here on the left side of the screen. It shows the 3 units of the building split at the party wall for each of the 3 structures. Staff finds that the proposed preliminary plat meets minimum standards and is in general compliance with the land development code as proposed. It meets the general administrative procedures for preliminary plats. There are a few items that we did ask the applicant to provide prior to this moving on to City Commission. It will go forward for preliminary plat approval and then return for final plat approval. That will be just to the City Commission. The applicant is aware that they will need to retain the services of a surveyor to prepare the final plat. If the preliminary plat is approved in compliance with Florida statutes, we do not have a surveyor on staff. So we ask for a recommendation to approve the preliminary plat to the City Commission. We do have the owner and applicant present if you have any questions for them.
Great, thanks. Any questions for Brandon? If the applicant would like to come forward and give us your summary on what you're looking to do.
Sure. And I did stand up before to swear, so if you need me to do that, because I wasn't sure if my folks were going to speak across the street. So.
You did not get sworn in? Yes, if we could do that, that would be fantastic. Thanks.
Do you swear or affirm that the information or factual representation that you are about to give to the board is truthful?
I do.
Thank you.
And if you could just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jimmy Yergi. I'm actually in from New York. Actually, I have a home in Tampa also. And I had a friend approach me and wanted me to help him out on a project in St. Pete's. So that's what brings me here today.
Can we get your local address as well?
Sure, it's 2103 Bayshore Boulevard, Tampa, Florida. I've been working with Brandon, I would say probably for about 6 months or so now, through an acquisition and a preliminary development project. What I'm planning on doing with another gentleman friend of mine is building 3 townhomes at 3511. If someone's not familiar with it, it's almost kitty corner from the Don Cesar's. Going to separate them, going to make it a spectacular building. I don't know if Brandon has a picture of it. If we could show the folks, I have no problem with showing them, but it's going to be really wonderful. So we're looking forward to getting started sooner than later and improving that lot. It's been, I think it was, there was a old building on it that was torn down, so we're going to improve it, and something that we'll all be proud of, and going to continue to make St. Pete's, a pretty place to stay. So if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to ask you. And they're going to be about, probably just about 2,900 square feet, each one of them. They're being raised garages to protect everything from any of the environment issues that may come up. It'll be built to today's standards. It's pretty much it. And it's kind of look like a, what would you say the look would say? It's kind of got a Follies Beach look, kind of feel to it. Got some nice plaster exteriors and nice railings. Pretty aesthetics all the way around. So it'll be something that we'll all like.
New resilient construction.
Pardon me?
Said new resilient construction.
Correct.
Sounds like-
Yep, correct.
Any questions for the applicant?
Does this have a seawall?
No.
This property does
Not-
not
not-
have
it wasn't
any
required, no.
responsibility for any seawalls? Okay,
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I would know.
Hey, thank you. If we have any further questions, we'll
Thank you
make
so
sure.
much.
to speak.
Appreciate your time.
Is there anybody here that would like to speak on behalf or against this
I
application?
have a card from Aaron Zions.
No cards for this case?
Evidently not.
Okay.
4A.
All right, then we'll close public discussion and open for board conversation.
I don't see any problem with this.
Seems like a fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, right now it's an empty, ugly lot, so.
And like I said, anything that we can do to have strong new buildings on the beach right now is a good thing.
Yeah.
So, do I have a motion?
I will.
Actually, before we move to motion, we did not disclose any ex parte. Is there any ex parte for this particular case?
Looking forward
Oh.
to seeing something nice on it.
Okay.
Go
And
ahead.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of preliminary plat 24098 to the City Commission.
I'll second that.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Causey?
Yes.
Member Core?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
Yes.
Chair Chase?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to action item B, case number 24104. Thank you.
If I may have the overhead, please. Okay. Madam Chair and board members, Kristen Coleman, Senior Planner for the city. One of the 2 variance cases we have today is variance case number 24104, located on Blind Pass Road, known as parcel 253115092340000001. They're requesting an unnecessary and undue hardship variance, Dan Nelson of St. Pete Beach Yacht and Tennis Club for the Weatherly Condo Association, and they're requesting a variance for replacement/installation of 260 square foot, 10 by 16 feet, 10 foot high storage structures, where one structure with a maximum square footage of 80 square feet and a maximum height of 8 feet is permitted as per Land Development Code Section 6.13B 5A through B. Here is an aerial of the property. The subject property where the 2 storage structures would be located is highlighted in red. This is just a portion of the boundary survey showing the existing and proposed location of the storage structures. I did take the portion of the survey, but then also give you an aerial to kind of locate it because the parcel as a whole is so large. To just help orientate yourself on that one. Going into the request detail, we're looking for a couple of variances on this one. One is for the number of storage structures, where 1 storage structure is permitted, 2 are proposed. maximum size, where 80 square foot is the maximum permitted and 160 square foot per storage structure is being proposed, and a height where a maximum 8 feet high, measured grade to the highest point on the structure is permitted, and the proposed height to peak is 10 feet. Just some photographs. Noticing was completed as required, sign posted on the property, and mailings within 300 feet of the subject property as well. Just another aerial view of a close-up of where the two storage structures were located, and I say were, as we go into the subsequent photographs. Just wanted to, again, give an image from 2024 prior to our weather events and hurricanes, and then after. You'll see one storage structure where two did exist. I think as the applicant will put testimony in, one was damaged in the storm or is somewhere. Just, these are staff pictures from our visit. Another view looking towards Blind Pass Road. Staff comments. From the Technical Review Committee that was held on January 21st, 2025, and also contained within the staff findings report, we do find that the applicant has addressed some of the hardship criteria, but does request additional testimony be provided to demonstrate that denial would result in deprivation of an integral and necessary aspect of the use of the property in a manner that creates a hardship. The applicant has indicated that these specific sheds serve as an amenity for residents and could better articulate to the board how they are an integral and necessary feature of the site, contributing to a hardship if removed. The applicant should provide further testimony as to the hardship faced in terms of necessity for the storage structures and what is to be stored within. In addition, should provide testimony if the proposed structures are adequate to store all materials within the proposed building, eliminating any goods or materials to be stored outside. Details should be provided regarding any existing exterior lighting in the area, whether building mounted or pole mounted, as well as any lighting proposed as part of this request. And prior to Hurricanes Helene and Milton, there was fencing and established vegetation which provided substantial screening from the adjacent southern development Captiva K and demonstrated in the photo I provided before. The applicant should provide testimony on any plans for landscaping and details to replace any areas that were damaged or destroyed by the weather events. And I have motion options, but I have the applicant here to answer any questions as well as myself.
Any questions for Kristen prior to hearing from the applicant?
I have a question. Did our zoning change? Is that why? Okay,
No.
So they had existing. So that would, did they also
I'm
get
not-
variance for that?
They did not that I have seen. I looked through as far back in the records that we have. I'm not sure how they were placed on the property. The applicant could provide testimony.
History about it?
Yes.
Because I know they're looking, it looks to me like for like.
Correct.
And if they didn't have a variance for the first round, then they need it for this round. I was trying to understand the background to make sure we knew
Correct.
something changed from the city perspective.
Nothing's changed, and I will say with the applicant, he did approach staff prior to the hurricanes to just, I don't want to take his testimony away, as far as it was in the works, I would say. And then when he came in for the formal submission, and it was like, well, now there's some that are gone. But it was originally proposed for a removal and just replacement.
Okay, thank you.
And what is the height of the existing shed there?
I believe it's 10 feet as well.
10 feet.
I'm assuming you're the applicant.
Yes, ma'am.
You can share your name and address for the record.
Okay, my name is Dan Nelson. I live at 9425 Blind Pass Road, and that's in St. Pete Beach, obviously. First of all, good afternoon. I'm the vice president on our board of directors at the Yacht and Tennis Club, which is one reason why I'm here. I'm also a homeowner, and we're hoping that today the board will listen to our testimony and that of the others and grant us the variances that we request to replace the 3 sheds that we have on the property. We have a 13-acre property. There's 4 separate 13-story condo towers that you probably can't miss seeing when you make the turn down there. And there's another 3-unit building. So we have about I think it's 353 homeowners in that complex that share all of our amenities. I'd like to start with the hobby shed, because there's 2 sheds on the first variance and 1 on the second one. So if I can go into that, if you have no objection, I'll explain.
So we'll assume that you're providing testimony for both cases for both.
I can do that if
Is
you'd like. I can just blend them together.
Madam Chair, that is up to you. I do have a separate presentation, and I did like to keep them separate, just because they are on separate parcels, to be honest with you. But however you'd like to have the testimony is up to you.
Okay, so if we can isolate this discussion to the one.
That's fine. I'm prepared to do that. Okay. So the hobby shed, we have 2 sheds on the south end of the property, which basically abut the Captiva K owners. One is a hobby shed for homeowner use to make light repairs on work and hobbies and crafts. And the other one is to maintain for our maintenance crew that works on our property. We have full-time staff there that they maintain. Many of our owners, as probably some of you have experienced, when you move from a house to a condo, there's very little space to store things. As a result, our hobby shed serves as kind of an integral place to fix things, repair things, do some craft work that you can't do inside your own condo units. And those have been there, I've been there for over 10 years, and they were there at least 25 years ago, because I've ran into some residents that said that's approximately when they remember them going up. It's basically a safe spot for people to work, because obviously with the sun and so forth, you can be out there and you can be inside of these sheds to work and whatnot. We store hand tools, power tools, we have a drill press, air compressor, battery charger, some ladders, repair items that are used by homeowners, and there's a large marina population within the YTC that also utilizes that. I wasn't even aware of how much they use it, but apparently there's not a lot of things they can do out by the boat docks that are safe for them to do it because of things falling in the water or maybe spray painting something. They don't want to get any contaminants. So they do use the shed for that work. We currently do not have any plans for any outside lighting on those sheds. We have restricted hours for our use, which basically is 8:30 to 4:30, just like our contractors. So once that time passes, there should be no noise or no work out there. So we have no need to light those sheds. We don't have any now, and there's no plans in the future to do that. Prior to the hurricane, you can see from some of the pictures, we did have a 6-foot high privacy PVC fence that surrounded that area. That will be replaced as soon as we get our new sheds in, because obviously I did actually drive on the other side to see what do Captiva owners see. And to be honest with you, with the fence gone, it's not pretty at all, because you see everything. So with that fence back, that would shroud us from any unsightly view. And in addition, we did lose, as Kristen mentioned, a lot of our shrubbery was pulled out during the storm, so we're going to replace that next to the sides of the fence to make sure that they don't see what we see on our side. That's basically all I have for that hobby shed. Any questions?
One other question we had was, would the size of the sheds be able to contain all things needing to be stored?
Yes. And in fact, you see the one picture that she had there with the blue tarp on it. That's basically one of our racks that we had inside. We put a lot of tools on that. We had a bench that was actually built in there, so that's where we do work. And there really isn't a lot of big things that go in there. It's mostly space to work. So yes, everything can fit inside that shed.
Questions?
Yeah, I noticed there was a long ladder that looked like it would not fit in the shed
Correct.
in the picture.
So what the plan is for that is when we put these sheds back, between the 2 sheds, I believe the code is 6 feet apart from sheds, so we'll have those placed that distance. In the front of those, there'll be there'll be a fence with a gate. Behind that will be another fence that's on the Captiva side, so anything in there would be shielded from view as well. That's usually where we put the trash can.
Maybe I'm slow, so forgive me for asking this, but if you had sheds before, what would prevent you from putting the sheds that are like you had before of that size back where they were originally?
Well,
I don't
the
understand.
zoning code that the city has it 8 by 10? I think it's 8 by 10, so you have 80 square feet. What we've had there for 25 years is 10 by 16, so we just want to put the same size back up. And I'd love to not have to do this, but apparently that's what we have to do to get the variance, because it's larger than they allow. Even though it's
Are
been
you
there.
saying that the original ones were larger than were allowed?
No, the city's changed, well, then changed. Your size is 8 by 10, and our size we've had for 25 years is 10 by 16. So we just want to put the same size back in there. Nothing bigger, nothing.
In the same location as they were before?
Yes, sir.
Member Core, if I may, just to elaborate on that, we have no record of permits being obtained or a variance being obtained for that. So if it's a removal and replacement of a non-conforming structure, they have to get the proper approvals for that, which would require them to come before the Board of Adjustment. And that's just part of their testimony. They are removing and replacing of the same size. But that's why they're before you today.
But they're not the same size. They're bigger than a lot.
No, they are the exact same size that is there. Correct. Where, if I may, where there is a maximum square footage that you're allowed
Yes.
of 80 square feet and one structure. Not sure how 2 structures got on there. It may have been before we had a zoning code. They may have just appeared and whatever, but when it was approached that we'd like to do this, we'd like to remove and replace, that's what triggers them to come in to get approval from you, because it's not permitted per the land development code. So they're asking for relief from that, which would allow them, if they have the variance, should something similar happen, God forbid, please no, or hurricanes, but if something were to happen again, they now have that permission. That runs with that property.
Does that bring clarity to you?
Does it make more sense?
Dan, I do have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
With respect to, so you're taking the one that's there down as well and replacing that one?
Yes, ma'am, it would be taken down.
Is there anything that you're doing to make what you're putting back more resilient?
Well, from what I know, the construction then was just basically aluminum, and inside there's no stud work, there's nothing. It's just kind of like butted together on the seams, so it's not, back then, I guess that was how they built sheds, so it's not real sturdy. Today, what they do is there's 3/4-inch plywood floors, solid roofs with studding and studding with roof rafters, I guess how they call it, and then the walls have 16-inch on center studs. So I think it's a much more sturdy structure than what's there now. And I think the Hurricane anchors that they use, that Wally Watt uses with the contractor we liked, they're like 3-foot bolts that go down into the ground, whereas opposed to now, if we were to go out there, you'd see there's aluminum straps that they just probably put in a foot or so, and that's what snapped off. So that was all that was holding those in a hurricane, which is why that was ripped off. And I think the only reason the other one stayed is because the easterly winds that we got probably blocked most of that. That's why that one went first.
I had a question, since we did receive a number of letters about, against this, and mainly centered around the look of it being messy. I'm curious to know if you'd received any complaints at your board meetings.
Not at board meetings, but I did in the past have a dog that I would walk around the area, and I ran into several people that lived there. One of them was I believe the current board president, and there was questions about the maintenance of the area. One of the problems that people had in these letters, kind of one of the common themes was a lot of tree branches hanging over. That was remedied when we put the new fence in. They had an existing 3-foot fence there that was rotted to the point where I believe the city had to remove that. They did and chose not to replace it. So we replaced it because we had people passing through the properties and we wanted to kind of cordon that off. So we replaced a chain link fence in there, which stopped the problem. But prior to that, we cut back all the brush in there because that's what I was told, that was one of the biggest complaints. So I made sure, being on the board, that our landscaper came in there and that they cut back 20 inches of that. So there shouldn't be, at this point, there shouldn't be any branches hanging over. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, we have the same contracting company. So whether we trim it or they trim it, we have the same people working for us at this point. So that was a valid concern, and I understand that, and it was remedied. The other issues were some of the unsightliness around the shed. That was also true. We had a different maintenance person back then who had been there for many years. Some stuff accumulated and wasn't disposed of. Before I got on the board, I was quite vocal about getting rid of that stuff, and it just didn't seem like it was being heard by anybody. So I would say that was a valid complaint, that there was stuff that was unsightly outside of the fenced area. So going forwards, that would be something that our maintenance staff is pretty clear on now, that nothing gets put outside of it. Right now, there is some like palm fronds and things that have accumulated that our landscape company is picking up, and they might even be there today doing that. But obviously, we're not going to put that stuff inside of a shed. It's vegetation and so forth. And there's a few other things that were left outside there for years that some of it was removed, some of it wasn't. So I've been pretty adamant about getting that stuff taken out of there so we can keep that area clean, because we don't want to look at it, and I wouldn't want to look at what they look at if it was like that. But with that white fence gone now, there's no shielding anything. I mean, it's pretty unsightly.
Yeah, it just seems like there's been a pretty long history of not being able to keep things in the sheds.
Yep.
And I wonder how that's going to work out for the future.
Well, we have a new manager. We've got a different mindset on the property. If we get that fence put back up around it, I don't think there'll be anything that's going to be outside of that area, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think I would be willing to vote for a variance if we don't have some solid fence that's high enough, maybe as high as the shed. That would, like, for example, a 3-foot fence, that would be a no-go. 6 foot, I'm wondering if it really means much.
That's what we have. We had there before was a 6-foot, which is the current chain link height, so they would match
So
that.
if you're in any of the places on the other side of the parking lot above the first level, you would see everything.
Well, we'd certainly be open to whatever your recommendation is. I don't know what the code is for the fence heights. I thought it was 8 foot,
Is 6 of 8 is the
8 is the maximum.
8 is the maximum.
so that would be something, I mean, go from 6 to 8. I mean, if we have to put it up, that's what it takes. We'll do that.
Yeah, I think that's what I'd be looking for.
Okay.
Well, with any, sorry, could I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, just kind of thinking about, so I assume you will have you're an association, right? And membership and.
Yes, ma'am.
So there's some kind of rules, regulations.
For the usage of it? Yes. So we basically, it's like an 8:30 to 4:30 time slot to use it. So nobody's supposed to be out there working after that time.
Okay.
And our security hut has the keys for that, and they regulate when people are out there.
Okay. And also, would there be some kind of rules and regulations around the maintenance of that area and how people leave it if they're using it?
We really don't have a problem with people or residents leaving stuff there. I mean, we did have a trash can, but a lot of people don't even know that trash can's there because it's kind of tucked between the buildings. The current maintenance staff is definitely aware that they're not supposed to leave stuff laying around. We've had a major renovation project several years on the buildings, and these crews come in, and obviously they're not our people, but they're hired, and they're looking for shade. A lot of times they sit in that whole corridor there because it's all shaded. And I know they've left trash over there, and we've told them to pick it up. And if you can communicate with them, they'll do it. But usually we have to go to the contractor, make sure that they take all that trash out of there. And sometimes that's a little difficult. And if our maintenance people see it, we've instructed them to also remove it. So it happens. I mean, not gonna lie, there's trash that builds up sometimes when contractors come in.
So no variance would be required if they put an 8-foot fence up?
No, there would be.
Not for
There's
the
still, the
fence.
variance is required, but 8 foot is permitted with that height.
Okay.
Any further questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir. We might, if we have any further questions, we'll ask you.
Okay, good. Want me to stay here for the next variance?
No, we're going to close out this one. We'll take public comment.
Okay,
And
very good, thank you.
We didn't ex parte on this either.
let's disclose any ex parte? Any ex parte for this?
I know the area, I have friends that reside there, so.
And I drove through it yesterday.
Just to drive by myself.
I drove across the street from it a couple of days ago, but there's a gate. I don't have a pass.
Yeah, I just drove by and looked.
And with saying that, I am aware over the last 2 years, they've been replacing all the walkways and everything else.
We'll have time for board discussion, so we can share some of that. So at this point, we'll take public comment. So if there's, I know we have a significant number of cards. We'll call your name in order that they were received.
Now I have Aaron Zions.
If you can please state your name and address for the record.
Aaron Zions. I'm a resident at YTC 9525 Blind Pass Road, unit number 607, St. Pete Beach. Good afternoon, members of the Board of Adjustment. I'm president of the Courageous Condo Association, which is one of the 5 associations within the Yacht and Tennis Club. I represent 93 members of the 353 people that are there, 25% of the ownership, a little over 25% of the ownership. In our board meeting last night, we put the question to our board and the members, and without objection, we endorsed these variances. The property that is in question is 12.67 acres, composing of the 6 associations, 5 distinct parcels, a common area, 353 units, and in excess of 550 residents. The property has a yacht basin of 81 slips that require a place to store pedestals, maintain equipment. Boat owners need an area to make repairs and fabricate refit projects, not to be done on the water so that we don't harm the environment or create debris in our waterways. Not to mention, we also need a place to store safety equipment that would be needed. The YTC also has 7 true hard courts for tennis and pickleball that need equipment, utility vehicles to pull large pieces of equipment such as rollers and sweepers, net storage, and other equipment, machinery, and tools for that area as well. I'm sorry, that's on the next agenda item, but it's all in one as far as I'm concerned. Not to mention, we have shuffleboard courts, golf cage, and lawn maintenance equipment that is there, and other items. We need a place for storage and charging of our 3 maintenance carts, our security vehicles, plus we may add other amenities in the future, and these sheds are basically just holding what we have at this point. And by having new ones, we'll have additional space within those because they're built in a different way. I believe this illustrates why the YTC needs at least these few structures to be replaced and granted a variance at this time. I think you should consider possibly even enlarging one of the sizes of these units. But that's not what we're asking. I do have a question. If there are 6 distinct parcels, wouldn't each parcel be allowed to have its own utility shed on the property? And with almost 13 acres, it seems that we're undersizing the amount of utility space that we have to store items, especially considering golf carts and whatnot. We don't want those stored out in the area. Thank you for the consideration of this variance. I hope you consider and vote in favor of it.
Thank you.
Dina Michelson? Ronnie Tobin? Jane McCrory?
Need to make this taller. Jane McCrory, 9415 Blind Pass Road, St. Pete Beach. I'm the president of the Yacht Tennis Club Association, meaning for the common areas. My board, for the most part, changed over in March of this year, the end of March. We've had a bit of a heck of a year, I will say. We came in with a big mandate before us. We needed to replace a landscaping company. We have a big seawall project, a $2 million seawall project that we're working on. We lost our manager in June, which, as far as I'm concerned, was a good thing. Took us till December to get a replacement. A couple of storms came through in the meantime, and so we've been a little busy, and not excuses, just kind of setting the scene. To be honest, I wasn't as aware of the things that were bothering our neighbors as maybe perhaps even I should have been. I mean, we were focusing on a lot of big things, and I do have a day job too, so, you know, I don't do this full time, but in any event, I became most aware of it just very recently, I would say within the past 2 weeks, when Dan gave me a photograph of looking at what we have from the Captiva side of the fence. He mentioned that there was a fence there before that belonged to Captiva. It was kind of dilapidated. It was removed. And we wanted to replace the fence because we're a gated community. Captiva opted not to. So we replaced the fence. Part of the complaint that we had previously was that there was all this vegetation, and it was growing through the fence, and it was kind of wild and thorny. And so we thought, all right, well, we have to clear the area for the fence anyway. Let's get rid of some of this stuff. Well, that created another problem because now you can look in more. It's not as camouflaged with vegetation. And on top of that, there was debris from the storms. So part of our roof mansards, the metal pieces that are above the building, blew off. They were sharp sheet metal and everything, and we were putting them to the side for disposal. Those ended up in that area. There was a fenced-off area with the white fence that's been mentioned where our staff could go to have lunch if it was a nice day. That was fenced off in white. Nobody could see the table with them sitting there. Plus, there were some other things stored in that enclosed area. White fence is in Kansas someplace. I don't know. It blew away. So we don't have the white fence anymore. So I spoke with the president of Captiva within the past 2 weeks, not more than 2 weeks ago, just to talk everything over. We have not been good neighbors. We've not. And there was a less than congenial relationship between the past board and the past manager and Captiva. And I'm sure they'll attest to that. That's how it's been. When their fence came down, our manager at the time put up one of those construction orange things with the holes in it that's stretched plastic and all. That's a horrible thing to do to your neighbors, and it stayed there for quite a while. The debris accumulated, as Dan said, because the current manager, maintenance supervisor, used that as kind of a dumping ground. So I spoke with the other president the other day, and I said, it's really horrible. It's really horrible what that looks like. I'm going to get somebody in there right away. And as it happens, today was the day that the haulers came in to take all that debris away. In addition to that, we're going to be evaluating a landscape plan that is now drawn up. I have a landscape workshop with the community scheduled February 11th. It's a $275,000 project as proposed, and part of that will be replacing vegetation. Oh, does that mean I have to stop talking? Okay, replacing vegetation along the fence. So I think, I should have been looking at that, I didn't see that. So I think that that will make it better for our neighbors. I appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Gary Starr?
I can keep it under 3. My name is Gary Starr. I'm a full-time resident of 9525 Blind Pass Road. I'm the treasurer of the Courageous Association. I'm also the treasurer of the Yacht and Tennis Club Association, working with Jane. I took that position back in March when the board turned over. I've been the treasurer at Courageous for the past 5 years. I'm here essentially just to say, again, our commitment going forward to be good neighbors. I was also not aware that we had not been good neighbors in the past. One of my objectives as treasurer is to make sure that the association has the funds to continue to approve and improve the property. People have spoken of the fence that separated our properties. That actually was a material change for us. It was not our fence in the past, but when they chose not to replace it, we wanted to do that on behalf of both of our communities. It was a material change. The majority, the 66% majority of our owners voted for that. I think it's clearly the intent of our board, it's the intent of our owners to be good neighbors. We did increase our budget. We used to only budget $25,000 a year for improvements to the property and grounds. You heard Jane mention that it would cost over $250,000 to redo the whole property. As treasurer, I wasn't sure that our owners wanted to do that all at once, but we did increase our budget in 2025 by $70,000 in that line item just so that we could fund a lot of the improvement projects. So we are committed to that and ask that the board do approve these variances. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Weil?
Good afternoon. My name is John Wild. I am at 9415 Blind Pass Road, Unit 1001. I've been a resident for 3.5 years. Prior to that, I leased in 3 of the different buildings for 3 months. My appeal is a little more personal. I did go from house to condo. And at home, I do a lot of work. Have a basement, had a basement, do all the work. Not work that you need a permit for, just little things. And I was happy when I bought the Yacht and Tennis Club because I had a place, shed, hobby shed, where there were tools that I didn't have in the condo, and a place to work in the shade, out of the rain. And a simple example, my wife and I have a patio table on our balcony, and it's PVC, and I wanted to raise it 2 inches. So that required new PVC 2 inches tall, taller than what was there. Pretty simple. We all might want to do something like that. I'm not going to do it in the condo with a handsaw that I would have to buy, I use a shed. So I'm here to appeal to you all. There are a lot of residents who have just little things to do that you choose not to do at a condo. And we use it, a hobby shed. Some tools, mechanical tools, hand tools, that we don't have to buy, we don't have to pay somebody to do. So I hope you'll consider that from a personal standpoint. I know there are regulations, that's why we're here for the variance, but I appeal to you. There are many residents who use that hobby shed. And you do have to check out the key. I want to use the key, I want to use the shed, go to the guard. The key is 4A, by the way, and I have to sign it out with a time. I use it, and before 4:30, that key is back. So I hope you'll approve the variance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Sheriff.
Not that tall. My name is Bob Sheriff. I'm a resident of 9495 Blind Pass Road, Unit 708. And John just took most of my speech away. But we have 353 units. And I'm sure if you've ever moved to a condo from a 36 to 4,000 square foot home, a lot of us had tool shops in the basement where we would go down and work on things. And one of the things that I found that was really a real find to me was that we had what I call the tool shop shed, not the hobby shed. It's not so much for hobbies, it's more for using tools to do things within your own abode, so to speak, that you could go there, use it, come out, be done, clean it up, put things in the trash bin, and then be done with it. Right now, my wife is asking me to change the color of a couple of tables that we bought because we just bought a lot of new furniture with black stain on it, and this has brown stain, and I don't have a place to go sand it and refinish it and do anything like that because Helene came and we have no idea where that shed is right now, someplace in North Carolina or wherever. So as John had said, I am also a person who uses that on a regular basis for different things that I want to do in my condo. And it's an important thing. And I have 2 tables sitting there with brown legs, and I keep getting my wife's stare every once in a while, when are you going to do those? And so that is a personal request from me to help me in my relationship with my wife. And also to allow us to have that shed back, because it is a major thing that's a positive for our development, to come from a large-scale house where I would say 60 to 70% of the people there have a tool shed in their basement. And that was part of the selling point of my house to the person who bought it. So I didn't get to take everything with me. So that is the reason that I ask you to pass this variance for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Al Johnson.
Al Johnson, 9375 Blind Pass Road. I hold the distinction of being the person who lives closest to that shed of anybody here. I'm in Captiva K, and even the people from the Out in Tennis don't live as close to that thing as I do. I'm 50 feet from it. And after hearing the discussion from the people who use it, I was always of the impression it was more, maintenance equipment that was stored there. I had no idea it was a workshop for folks. So now I guess I understand the hardship portion of this thing, so I get it. My problem is, of course, location. This 13 acres, and you've got a lot of waterfront. You've got a border between a commercial property, and you've got one border line with a residential area, which is us. So I don't understand taking a shed like this and putting it up against your own neighbors when you got other options. One thing I would like to point out, and I don't know, Jenny, can you? I don't know if this is gonna go.
Can we have the overhead, please?
Oh boy. I got it right?
Mm-hmm.
First time. Okay. What I wanted to show you is that I guess I wasn't aware that these are the same size. So the size has not changed.
Correct.
It's just the restriction. Okay, got it. And I've lived there 27 years. And I do want to tell you, I was glad when the storm blew when I'm away. I just wish you'd have taken them both. But that place, I'm sure over 27 years, there's been a bunch of different people managing the property. There've been a bunch of different contractors out there. And to be honest, none of them have done a good job of keeping that place looking nice. The fence that used to be there helped a lot for sure. But what I'm saying is, why don't we look at, here's where they are right now. You've got access from the pavement. Put them here. You've got them, you're closer to the guard shack where they keep the key. You're also, you're guarded from sight by the bushes and the trees that are right in this area. And you've also got access from the pavement. So to me, that would be the place to put them. Now, I understand one of these hedges is not going in that, one of these, storage units is going to go near the tennis courts. Is that true? Oh, is it the third one? Okay, that's why the other one. Okay, all right, then I don't care about that one. What I'm telling you is that just border them up against the right of way to the road, or to your own property. I can't see with the options you have why we have to look at the backside of that thing at all. And I'd really appreciate you guys considering granting them the variance, put it someplace else. Thank you.
Thank you.
And John Glow.
I have some photos too, but I don't know that I need to do them. Hello, my name is Ann John Lowe, and I live at 9359 Blind Pass Road, unit number 503. I am here not only as a homeowner, but I am president of the Condominium Association at Captiva K. We have two associations there. There are 55 townhouses and 50 condominiums. I am president of 9357 and 9359. 9359, we are directly south of, it is called Heritage on the Bay Condo, which is located at 9401. It's the little 3-unit condominium that they have at Yacht and Tennis Club. We are also members of the Captiva K Homeowners Association. As I said, that includes 55 townhouse units. In regards to this case and the placement of the 2 sheds immediately adjacent and in plain view of our property, we oppose this variance. We have not had a board meeting since this came up, but I have polled my 4 people on my board, and we are all in agreement, and many of my members of the association have agreed. This area has been neglected by the Yacht and Tennis Club for years. There is unsightly debris, building material storage, an informal gathering spot for work crews, and litter that is rarely removed. Landscaping has gone untended through various changes in your landscaping companies, and their irrigation system in this area is frequently left to spill water onto our sidewalk and retention area. I will add, there was a 10 to 15 foot fountain from one of their irrigation heads for 8 months that went off at 10 o'clock every night. I walk my dog at 10, just about 10 every night. They fixed that, and as soon as they fixed it, there's another one that literally just spills water out into the Captiva K property and into our retention drainage area every single night. And it has done so for months, which makes me believe that they do not pay attention to anything that goes along this property line. The placement of these large sheds at this location creates a horrible view, and it adversely impacts not only the 25 units at 9359 Blind Pass, which is directly adjacent and in full view of these sheds, but also the 8 homeowner units located at the townhouse structure, which are addressed 9361 to 9375 Blind Pass, immediately across from this area. These sheds are directly in front of the front entrances to these homes. And I've attached documentation, and I will leave a copy of my my statement here. If you can show on the overhead that.
We're happy to look at your images, but that does include your 3 minute time.
The placements of these would be just contrary to the beneficial use of our property, and they'd have an adverse effect on our property values. I don't believe an 8-foot fence is going to hide them. The 6-foot fence did not hide them. They're going to be 10 feet tall, so you're still going to see them.
Excuse me, your 3 minutes has surpassed.
Okay, thank you.
Sue Ray.
Sue Ray, 9373 Blind Pass Road. I'm right next door to Al Johnson, who spoke. We've both been there 27 years, so I have a lot of history with the Yacht Tennis Club. And I want you to know this is nothing personal. I've known Dan Nelson for how many years? He used to walk his dog on our property, lovely man. Just recently, like Jane said, I had a conversation with her maybe a week and a half ago or so. We had a lovely conversation. And there's no doubt that the Yacht Tennis Club needs these sheds. The question is, why do they have to be placed in front of our units? Al said his was directly in front of the shed. My unit is right next door. It would be directly in front of the shed that's going to replace it. A couple people made the statement that they didn't know where the other shed went. Well, I can tell you about a quarter of it ended up in our property, and after the hurricane, not any fault of their own, but we did have to dispose of that at our expense. So I won't go over all of the history of all the landscaping that hasn't been done, but I will say when there was a fence up there, it was better, the vinyl fence, but there was an area between the vinyl fence and the chain link that was never maintained. There was always junk in there. So I guess, you know, we're creatures of habit. We always want to do what we've always done, and I guess what I'm asking you for is to deny this request and to ask them to look outside of the box and to put it somewhere else on their property. I have no problem with the shed they want to put near the tennis courts, but the reason I think they originally put it where it was is because it was the farthest away from any of their front doors. However, it brought it the closest to our front doors. So like I say, I know they need the sheds, but they have a very large property. They have a very large parking lot, and I know that it needs to be accessible. Whatever is put there will still be a maintenance shed. There will be trucks coming in. They drop pallets of things. They don't always put them in the sheds, and if they're going to move the pallets of things, you know, then fine, but sometimes they stay there for a month or more. I don't know if that's going to change. I do believe that both Dan and Jane have very good intentions and are going to make every effort they can. They've already cleaned up the area a little bit, but really, I'm just asking that you deny this so that they can think outside of the box and find an area in their property, even if they have to take a couple of parking spaces and put it there, because I know it does have to be accessible to trucks coming in. There's got to be another place on that huge property where they can put these sheds that won't be right at our front doors. And like I say, it does affect our property values, and to be a good neighbor, it would be nice not to have that occur. So thank you for your attention today.
Thank you.
Lisa Cook.
Hi, my name is Lisa Cook. I live at 9359 Blind Pass Road, and my family used to live at 9495 Blind Pass Road in the Intrepid. And for years, the yacht club, for 40 years my family lived there, took very good care of the property. And they had a place located by the tennis courts where you could put equipment and things. And then they have a huge clubhouse, and then there's plenty of room there or outside of there where if you needed to do something like make a repair or do something like that, they possibly could. It also makes me nervous to hear that they charge electric batteries there for their golf carts, because we live so close to that. If something were to happen and it exploded, it would make me nervous that it was so close to where we live, yet not close at all to where they live, since it's so far off. And it just is very unsightly. I walk my dog there, and we have like a sidewalk that we could walk on, and their plants came out so far and sticking that I couldn't even walk there. You know, you have to keep walking into the retention pond, and it really wasn't fair that they totally neglected that side of the property. And I appreciate the fact that now they say they're going to pay attention to it, but lots of garbage, people sitting there, eating and drinking like for their lunch, smoking cigarettes, lots of, you know, stuff piled up. It would fly into our side, so my dog thought she would be at the all-you-can-eat buffet, and it's just not really fair. So I just wanted to speak up and say that they do have 13 acres, and they have plenty of property, you know, on many sides where they could easily put this so that it wouldn't impact us at all. And they can be better neighbors and take care of their landscaping. So, thank you.
Thank you.
William Webster.
Will Webster, and I 9525 Blind Pass Road in the Courageous Building, Yacht Tennis Club. My wife Tanya and I have been here since 1988. We've seen a lot of change. When I moved here, there was no property next to our property. There was no property next to our shed for a long time, and that property was built there. So, you know, I understand. I think our president has heard the complaints. I think our people are trying their best to remediate any complaints that they hear. And it's just kind of logical that a property this large needs someplace to put their stuff. And part of the thing about living in a condo, when you move from a house, you miss your hammers and saws and things, and it's just a tremendous amenity. And it's a beautiful day, and that's about all I need to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
David Reingold.
Thank you. David Reingold. I live in the Weatherly Building, which I guess is the closest building to this area, 9415 Blind Pass Road. I'm on the 13th floor, the top floor, so I see the area. Rather than what I was going to say, I'd like to talk about what I heard our neighbors say. First, as an owner, each building has its own dumpster room. So owners, in my building and all the others, this is not a place we bring garbage to. We bring it to our building, and it's collected quite often. So we're not really bringing garbage there. Maintenance staff. I think we have a maintenance manager and 2 staff. There's not a horde of people that are having lunch there, and they don't take lunch at the same time. They're working, and they share their work. Yes, it's a big property, but it's mostly occupied, and a lot of grass. As you know, you have to have so much grass, or they get angry at you for taking away the grass. So there's not a lot of other places to move it. The sheds play an active role for us, for the maintenance staff and for the owners. I use that shed. We even let people and residents come. We do Fix Your Bicycle Day so that there's a place to go. I did want to mention that it's a central function for our property, even if you live in the buildings that are far away. We can't take away the tennis courts. You really can't take away the parking spots. Days of very transient owners has ended. Almost every parking lot, every parking spot gets full. So this is an important area. We don't use it after hours. It was very dirty for a long time. I've been here a long time. I've lived in 3 of the buildings. I can't seem to keep a residence, but it's kept pretty clean now. But you can't clean it every day. You can clean it every week, twice a month, 3 times a month. But we're not talking about piles of stuff. We're talking about things that are put down, waiting to be taken away. And this is being taken away by the maintenance staff. If someone is doing work on their condo, the contractor takes it away. They're required to take it away. They cannot use the dumpsters in the building. So both of those sheds that we are requesting are important. We've grown. The complement of full-time residents has changed. There's much more of us, and it would be a hardship not to have those sheds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yvette Gaw.
Hey, guys. So I live next door.
Name and
Yvette Gaw.
She came
So I live next door to.
Oh,
not sworn in.
thank you.
I did. I stood up.
Okay.
I thought I saw you come in after that.
Yeah, I stood up at the beginning. I live next door to Sue. I've been there for 26 years. And I'll have to concur, and just to piggyback on what they said, I didn't really understand it was 13 acres. But I would like to implore them to look at other areas on their property because it is an eyesore and it does decrease the value of our property. But other than that, when they say people, like I'll work in my office and I do hear people on their property and I do hear them eating lunch and laughing and doing whatever they do. So I like the idea, if you guys vote one way, that there's an 8-foot fence, that's great, and fixing the foliage around that area. But I know my neighbor Sue has been she has been a warrior going out there and cleaning up and taking her big trash can and filling it up with all the limbs and the leaves and everything that's fallen on our side. So we have been, unfortunately, because of the way that area is, it all lands on our side. So we're responsible for cleaning up that area, right? So again, having been there for 26 years, we see it. It is an eyesore. They're all off in their condo building, so they don't see it, and I appreciate the need that they want to have a storage unit, but I think that the ability to go and find it and put it somewhere like Al said, on a different part of their property, probably would be a great answer for this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the cards I have.
All right. I think we'll close public comment at this point, have some board discussion, and we can always reopen public comment if we have additional questions.
Can I say something? I didn't raise my hand before. I'm part of the FUBK.
If you would like to fill out a card and bring that to the clerk.
They're on the table in the back if you want to comment first, and bring me the card after, that's fine.
Okay. Ma'am, you can go ahead and make your comment, and then just provide a card after the fact so we have that for the record. And just provide your name and address, please.
I wasn't planning on talking, but I was quite frustrated what I was hearing. I'm Nicole Meyer at 9357 Blind Pass Road, Captiva K. I've been a resident of Captiva K for 2 years. I am also now the secretary of the HOA. Of the 2 years that I've been there, that whole side looked horrible. And to suggest the existing fence that they have and then put another fence behind it, anything that falls in between those two fences, they're not going to take care of. They have not taken care of anything in the 2 years I've been there. Sue has, the 2 years I've been here, she has talked to them constantly to clean it up, clean it up, clean it up. I have a part-time in Illinois, and I live in a farm. My farm looks better than that. And if there's a crude comment, it looks like white trash. And we have a community that our values of our townhouses and condominiums, we're approaching the 100 million mark. We should not be looking at that. They can move it somewhere else. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments to be made? Right. And we'll close the public comment and open for board discussion.
Do we let Dan or come back?
I think let's have some, okay. So if we come up with a series of questions that we might have for them to come
the
back.
main question is, what about the location? Because the variance is a variance for the size of the shed. It wasn't about the location. So that seems to be the open question of concern. I don't think anybody spoke out and suggested they would want to take away the size shed. It's the location.
Well, what I'm curious about, is there a way that, Jane, did you say your name was? And you said you guys have been horrible neighbors, and you admitted that, and you want to change. So could you and Al Johnson, who's right next there, could you guys get together and figure out other places to put do the sheds have to be in that location, or could they be somewhere else?
Jane, if you don't mind, prior to us engaging with the applicant first, I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page as to what we wanted to discuss with the applicant. So I think we're all in agreement that location is the primary consideration. If so, then I'd like for the applicant to reapproach, and we might have additional questions for the public comment. But if the applicant can please approach the podium. Okay. Thanks. So the big question on the table is location. Would you like to respond to what you guys maybe have already done to explore additional locations, or if that's not something that you've yet pursued?
Can I ask Jane to come up, because she has been integral in talking about this with some others, and I think she might be a little more inclined to answer it.
Absolutely. Just as the applicant, I wanted to give you control over.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about that, yes. And I do want to stress that my board has only been in since March 28th, so I was referring to previous board and previous management. As far as location on the property, it's been there for the 25-plus years. There was the opportunity to replace the Captiva fence that was there, at which point, if it was really bothersome, there could have been an 8-foot white solid fence there that would have blocked the sheds. They opted to do no fence. We're the ones that put up the fence. So,
excuse me, ma'am, the public comment has closed. Thank you.
So if we talk about other locations, we have both ends of the property that would be logical locations for this. One by the Courageous side, which borders former Sea Hags, and one by the Weatherly side, which is where I live, and I look at the sheds too. That's where my front door is, that borders Captiva K. So on the Courageous side, which would be the other logical place, there's a huge commercial gate there between our property and Sea Hags by arrangement with that property. We will be using that huge gate for the seawall project, for all this heavy equipment to come in, and we have it for that purpose should the need arise for heavy equipment. So nothing can block that gate. Next to that are a few more parking spaces that start to border on the marina part of Sea Hags, and that is currently being used to store piles of big stones that we've been using to fill the holes created by scour from the deteriorating seawall. So we would dump things like the stones where people can go with wheelbarrows and get them and put them out. We could dump a load of mulch there. We could have pallets of sod there when we do the landscaping. I think all of that is less attractive than two sheds that have been there 25 years. Other than that, we have green space. The sheds, particularly the maintenance shed that's there, needs to be accessible for the maintenance people to pull up with their carts behind the golf carts and to load or unload whatever they're going to do in that area. There are spaces between the building that are paved, but those are mostly fire lane and partially car wash areas. So those areas are out. By the clubhouse you can't do. There's a little circular driveway. There's 5 air conditioners on the side of the clubhouse, and there's not a space there to put 2 sheds where anybody could pull up to. It's not practical. So really the only logical places are there. We have one small shed that's the next topic, which is by the tennis courts. There's a little narrow corridor area between the tennis courts and the building and the court, and the other courts. And that's where that little thing goes for clay for the courts and things like that, which will be the next topic. There's a dog walk area with grass. The area that's further over inside by the front wall, there's a huge dip there and then a berm. It's not level. So those places aren't really conducive to sheds either. So I think the practical places are one side of the other. That happens to be the side. I mean, there are residential properties all over the county where you live next door to somebody who has a shed. It's not unusual. I mean, lots of people have sheds, and what people do when they don't like the sheds is they put up a solid white fence. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. The specific recommendation that Mr. Johnson has shared, is that an area that you have looked at?
I'm not sure which area it was.
Is the overhead still?
It's right at the shuffleboard court.
Al, where was it?
Kind of.
On either end of the shuffleboard court would be a better, big improvement.
So, all right, so the parking space there. So we have, on the one end by the,
That or even
all the way over.
Even further. Yeah, that's where he was talking about.
Okay. Yeah, so over there is, over there is where the access is to our huge reclaimed water pipes. And then there's another blue pipe there that I'm not sure what it's for, but there are utility areas there. There's, we need access to the phone box that's there for Frontier. There are electric lines there that have to be accessed. We just had repairs on that because of the storm. I don't think that's an appropriate area. The other side of the shuffleboard court, maybe, but you're still going to see that from over there. And then if we move them, then we still have the picnic table for the people to have their lunch, which, by the way, lunch hour is 30 minutes, so they're not there all day.
Well, the other idea, I guess, was to suggest that using parking spaces there and give your parking spaces back where your current sheds are. So then you can line more parking spaces. I would assume those would be a lot tidier than sheds.
So I'm not sure that.
No, I'm not on walking your property, but again, if there's a way to move these sheds off of the property line, in giving yourself still parking spaces, which I know are precious, but.
Are you saying that you could put parking where the sheds are now and then put sheds?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Is that possible?
Been looked at as a possibility.
They're on pavement right now, so I think probably for stability is why they did that. So they are taking up parking places.
Right. So
I
you
would say
could
currently.
turn those back into parking spaces and move them over to parking spaces that you currently are using for parking.
Yeah, I mean, our lots are never full, so the parking isn't really a concern. Yes, that's true, but it's not like we need the spaces. If we move them over to the other side that was mentioned by the shuffleboard courts, if we put them on the pavement, we'd have to take a look at how vehicles get around there because we have moving trucks coming in and making those turns and everything, and I'm not sure if being on that side, you know, the east-west facing, would allow the same room as the north-south facing. And again, they would still be visible from Captiva.
Right. Understood.
Okay.
So if parking is not a concern, would you be open to looking at the other side of the property and repurposing some of the parking spaces on that side of the property as a shed location?
That other side of the property is what I mentioned, where the big gate is, and where we currently have piles of rock, but there could be piles of something else there. So we would have to swap those out and put that stuff over by Captiva, which I think would be worse.
That's a very small area.
Excuse me, sir. We need to keep public comment closed at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And Kristen, is there anything else with respect to the location of sheds that need to be brought to light?
Well, there is a front yard setback requirement, which either location they're showing. I'm hesitant about parking, though, and switching around parking spots. The survey that was submitted didn't reflect number of parking spots, so there's no way for staff to really calculate, do they have the required, parking? If we take up parking, would we still have the required parking? As far as the location goes now, they can put it right up against the property line, so it's not an issue of that. I know it's kind of the environment. So that isn't the variance that they're requesting?
Right, because
But-
they are doing the adequate setback off the property line.
Correct.
So it's the size and the number.
Correct.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be here if the size were different and their request was 1 for this parcel.
That is correct.
And then they could put a second one at a smaller size on another parcel within their property.
But the limited to
Without
the 80.
variances.
Yeah, limited to the 80 square feet, correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll reclose the public comment at this point and.
Chair, if I may, I did, a person who passed earlier asked if she could still speak. Dina Michelson, up to you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Dina Michelson.
Bring the microphone.
I need a smaller lectern. I live at 9339 Blind Pass Road. I am directly behind Al. When I sit on my balcony, see around Al essentially and see the junk that has been there. I moved in 10 years ago. It's only gotten worse. So it doesn't affect just the people who are right there staring at this stuff. It affects all of us. I was confused and I wanted to ask a question. I didn't understand, were the original buildings ever permitted?
So we don't have the history behind the original structures.
Because they're asking for a variance for structures that I believe were never permitted. And I don't believe that's appropriate. Because if they had gone through the permitting process, we would have been able to speak on that. And so a variance for something that has been an eyesore with promises that have been made for many, many years, I think is really a disincentive for people who live in our community. I moved from a house. I moved into a townhouse. I made sure I had a place where I could keep my tools. If you're moving, you need to take all sorts of things into consideration. So I understand they need this space. The residents want this space because it was essentially promised to them. But to provide a variance that disadvantages me, when I don't know if originally there was even a permit, I think is unfair to us.
I appreciate your comments, and I think it's important to note that while we do not have the historical nature of these structures, they're following the proper process now, and so any new building that would be constructed would be permitted and gone through the proper variance pathways. Thank you. All right, we'll now close the public comment and open for board discussion. Anybody like to start? Member Small?
There's two different identities here that if they could just get together. I mean, I don't know if they can do a fence together. Where they're talking about the garbage piling up between two fences.
Member Small, can we just have you speak into the microphone just for the record?
Okay.
I apologize.
This was our discussion.
No, it still needs to be in the record.
I'll be on the record.
Okay, it's got to be on the record.
Yes, sir.
So if they could find a way to communicate and have one fence, not two fences, then it would alleviate the problem of the junk between two fences. Put one nice fence up, I think that might solve some of your problems. I mean, I don't think wherever you live, you're going to be looking at something somewhere that sticks up above a fence.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point in that, like, there's multiple conversations going on, right? There's the historical maintenance that that's something for them to work through with their boards, and thankfully, it sounds like they have new leadership, and they're really committed to that, right? But what we're here today is to review the variance for the structures, and is there a hardship? And everything I've heard today is almost everybody in this room agrees that there's a hardship, that these sheds are used, they're they're a huge service to that community.
They've been there for 27 years, is that what I heard? Estimate, okay. I mean, so that in itself should say something. Just because it blew over, yeah, would we like for everyone to be happy? Sure we would. How can they resolve that? I think the one common fence might help their thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. It's a great idea. Member Grasha?
So I would agree. I think they've satisfied the hardship. It's an amenity. I think that what I'm considering in my mind, though, is the additional conditions, because it's not enough to say we're going to do it. There's been no proven track record. It's also maybe not enough to have a chain link fence when everything can blow through that and grow through that, for that matter. So I think that it's to me more in my mind now, what are those appropriate additional conditions that could make this a situation that hopefully can have the right neighborly engagement and also satisfy, I guess, some of the right amenities that people are wanting to try to enjoy there that they've had. So, I do appreciate what the staff had documented about a solid fence with and I might say even a minimum height of more like 8 feet if these are going to be 8 feet. And there's a requirement, and I don't know, again, how this would be managed as far as your security, and I'm not asking you to answer this, I'm talking, but with the fact that there are keys checked out and returned, but how are there a daily assessment of and a cleanup process that is incorporated, and then just if there is any lighting, that it's always something that faces back away from their property line so that it is not imposing into their neighbors.
And I know they said there wasn't going to be lighting, but we can make that, and down the road they decide to change that.
So those are the things that I'm thinking more as critical for any type of variance.
So basically following the staff's recommendations in terms of conditions, but the interest in having something additional that would cover the maintenance.
Any impact to the neighbors, yeah, in terms of the solid fence and the management of keeping that area maintained.
Okay. Gentlemen?
Well, I think about variances. You normally, like for example with docks, if you wanted to expand a dock closer to beyond what's allowed and ask for a variance, you've got to get your neighbors to sign off on it. So thinking about providing a variance when the neighbors don't like the variance, I'm not really on board with that. I'd rather explore other locations for them. I'd rather give them a shed, an extra shed, in a different place, like even a bigger shed than the code allows. So I think I'd rather hear them ask for a large shed or 2 large sheds, but have it somewhere where the neighbors aren't going to complain about it.
And I think the challenge there is based off their exploration, they haven't been able to locate another location.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure they've explored everything just from listening to what's been said.
But again, we're talking replacement. We're not talking new structure, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're replacing your dock, to your point, you're going to replace it with something that goes out further. That's different. They're replacing what was there with something that should be safer, strapped down better, everything else. I think if I lived on the other side, my complaint would be looking at trash, and I think that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I'm not sure the 8-foot fence is going to do the trick, though. I mean, if I was convinced that there were, you know, a 20-foot thing, that like trees or something where you literally couldn't see it, then that'd be one thing, but I just don't know if that's possible.
Kristen, in residential communities, if you're going to construct a shed in your backyard, is that something that requires neighborhood?
No, not.
Well, no. So if you're in compliance with the zoning code or the land development code, it would just be a building permit, and zoning would review it.
Yeah, so the way I'm thinking about that question that you're asking, what she's saying, is that if you were going to ask for a variance, though, for a bigger shed, and a person came in to the meeting and said, we don't want to see that giant shed sitting there, and these guys leave trash everywhere, and it's all a giant mess. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do.
And relative to
There's
the...
one that's still existing there, right?
Yeah, but they're here for a variance, right? So
For a new, to replace the other one. Okay, so technically, they could leave the one shed right there and then build another one.
Right now, we'll just stay focused on this case, though, and they want
No,
two new sheds,
They
and
want two new
replacing the
sheds,
one,
correct.
and they want to put the one that they lost back.
I think Member Small's point is if we were to deny this case, they could keep the one shed that is currently
Exactly.
there
Sure.
as is.
So
So
who wins there? That's, I don't.
do you have anything additional to add?
Well, I still think that there is a way for them to work together to figure something out that both sides, I mean, I see both points. I mean, yes, they need these sheds for sure, but I also see that the neighbors are furious about having the messes and stuff they've had. The fact that Jane said that, you know, they're shaping up, they're going to be better neighbors is helpful to know.
And to your, I mean, they did say they only talked once, the new leadership talked once about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
So one option would be, if we're really looking for them to come back with a solution that they can both be happy with,
That's what I think.
for us to
Yeah.
continue the case and give them the opportunity to come back with a plan that they can, you know, get behind, if we have commitment from both sides to really make that happen. Like, I don't want to push this can down if we're going to come back and have the same, you know, conversation
Exactly.
again.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Because the way the can's going right now, well, it doesn't matter what I think is.
Kristen, is that a viable option? Becky?
Yes, Madam Chair, we could continue it to a date certain, which would be our next meeting, the 26th. I think that would give them ample time. I would also suggest that they explore location options, as well as come up with a potential fence, wall, possibly landscaping as well plan that they could present to the board if they would desire to keep the same location. That just may help, you know, their case as well. Just give it a little bit more detail of what they could or propose to do.
Okay. Are we in agreement to ask the
Ask
applicant
that.
for that? Would the applicant please come forward?
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
So would you be, so I think our intent is to try to make this work for everyone, right? And I think that sentiment is shared in the room. And it seems like maybe you guys just haven't had enough time to have that neighborly discussion, given that the first conversation was about a week and a half ago. So would you be open to us continuing this to next month's meeting and coming together and committed to trying to come up with a solution that would work better for both associations?
Yep, I think that's reasonable, absolutely.
Is there a representative from Coquina Key that you can agree to come and provide that commitment as well? Can you please?
I'm representing one of the two associations, and Nicole Meyer is on the board of the other. I don't think there's anyone else here from either board, and we both agree that we would be willing to work with them.
Okay.
To see if we can come up with a fair solution.
Fantastic, thank you. Kristen and Becky, what more, do we just need to make a motion to continue?
Yes,
to-
continue it, and that would be until the February 26th meeting, if all parties are agreeable to that.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we continue case 24104 to our February Board of Adjustment meeting.
I'll second.
Let me ask, should we put both of them in because they're kind of the same thing?
No, we can do the second one. I think that one might be.
That'll be easier.
That one out.
Did we get a second?
Second.
No opposition to the other one.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Member Corr?
Yes.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Causey?
Yes.
Chair Chase?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Moving on to case number 24105, action item C.
If I may have the overhead, please. That was, see, my bottom motion is to continue the case. It was there for you.
If you want to have a conversation, I think you have to step
Please
outside.
step outside. You're welcome to stay and hear the rest of the meeting, but if you guys want to discuss, we'd ask for you to go to the lobby. Absolutely.
Continuing on to variance case number 24015, located at Blind Pass Road, parcel number 253115-95319-0000001. Dan Nelson of the St. Pete Beach Yacht and Tennis Club for the Weatherly Condo Association Incorporated, the Constellation Condo Association Incorporated, the Intrepid Condo Association Incorporated, the Courageous Condo Association Incorporated, and the Heritage Condo Association Incorporated, is requesting an unnecessary and undue hardship variance for the replacement and installation of a 160 square foot 10 by 16, 10 foot high storage structure utilized for tennis and recreational storage, where a maximum area of 80 square feet and a maximum height of 8 feet is permitted. And they're looking for relief from Land Development Code Section 6.13B 5A through B. So we're bringing you back onto the property just a little further north of the 12-acre parcel, but as you can see here, I just wanted to point out, with the previous application 24104, it was a separate parcel. So when they're thinking 12 acres, we're including all those parcels together, but that's why we are keeping them separate. Here's a different portion of the boundary survey showing the existing and proposed location of the storage structure that is proposed, and that was when it was there as well on that aerial. Again, they're looking for a relief from the number of storage structures, where one is permitted. Two actually are existing, with one to remain and one to be replaced. The one that is currently on the site is small. It's 6 by 4, so it's 24 square feet. Maximum size, again, 80 square feet is the maximum square footage permitted, and 160 is proposed. And a maximum height where a maximum of 8 feet is permitted, and they're looking to do 10 feet. Just bringing you on to the property, there was proper noticing as required. And here's the location of the tennis courts. You'll see in the middle, there is the 10 by 16 that was there between the tennis courts, and the little itty bitty guy next to it is the 6 by 4. Here is the current situation at the tennis courts. The 6 by 4 is what remains. And that location in front of the 2 gates is where the prior storage structure was located. Just another view from interior of the tennis court to the north, looking south. Some of the equipment, I believe, that the applicant provided testimony on that was stored within the storage shed. Again, this did go before a technical review committee that was held earlier this month, and the same information was requested that was in the staff findings report. And the staff does find the applicant has addressed some of the hardship criteria, but does request additional testimony to provide and to demonstrate that denial would result in deprivation of an integral and necessary aspect of the use of the property in the manner that creates a hardship. With this one, the applicant should provide further testimony as to the hardship faced in terms of the necessity for the storage structure and what is to be stored within. In addition, should provide testimony if the proposed structure is adequate to store all materials within the proposed building, eliminating any goods or materials to be stored outside like we currently see on the property today. And the applicant is here as well. Still here.
Thank you. The applicant can please come forward.
Back.
All right, again, it's Dan Nelson, 9425 Blind Pass Road. So, Kristen, if you can go back to the first picture, which shows the flat spot where the shed was.
Sure.
So, as you can see, that the area that's the cement area, that was where that 8x10 shed was. So that was the same situation as near Captiva. It was an 8x10 already there. That little one you see next to it that's going to be going, it's almost gone now, that's where we have clay aggregate, which is used to treat the hard-true quartz. So just so you can get a visual on that, and I'll explain to you the fencing you see there too. So the YTC has a large tennis complex which encompasses 7 hard-true courts, which is the clay-type surface. Maintenance is required to use a golf cart and heavy rollers to rake and use other tools to maintain the court. These items also should be protected from the elements, and you can see from some of the other pictures, everything right now is just sitting out in the open because we have no shed. That was destroyed in the second, I think it was the Milton that caused all the wind destruction. That one was destroyed. Again, these sheds, all these sheds were scheduled for our reserve study. I mean, our reserve study was showing them to be done in 2023 anyway. So it was kind of hastened up with the storm, so it moved things forwards for us. Our court maintenance person must store numerous hand tools, hoses, tampers, replacement parts, tennis netting to keep the courts playable. The shed is currently placed in such a location and designed to allow for the golf cart to drive through the shed, allowing easy access to both sides of the complex. We have no other feasible solution for the maintenance of the courts or the storage of equipment without a shed. The current shed was scheduled to replace, as I mentioned, due to its age and condition in 2023, but was completely destroyed by Hurricane Milton before it was initiated. The current size, again, is 8x10, and this one dates back to the same time in late 90s where they put that in. And if you look at the picture, Chris, there, so that green fence, that double fence there, there's another one on this side. So the way these sheds are, that shed is built, we have them custom made so the maintenance guy can drive through the court to the other side, because you can't get through the 36-inch gates with a golf cart. So everything that you saw that was laying around, a lot of that's been cleaned up, believe it or not. A lot of that wood stuff was there when we had, that was right after when Kristen came for the storm. So that's cleaned up. So the only thing left out there is just all the tools that we use. So that shed is much more shielded. It's not anywhere near Captiva. The lot behind it is the parking lot for, I think it's an auxiliary lot for what was CHAGS. So there's really nothing there. If you had an overview of that, you can see it's just a parking lot there. So we have fencing on both sides plus a 7-foot concrete wall there. So that's the case on that one. It's much easier to resolve that, I hope, than the last one.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay. Can I get a closing statement too at this point?
If you'd like to.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Obviously, we want to be good neighbors with Captiva, and it's quite obvious we're trying to make that effort. I'm glad we actually have come to an agreement where we can meet with them, because I think it's a good idea to do that. It's possible that we can find another spot on that property. It wasn't really brought to our attention that was such a problem, so obviously it's been raised pretty seriously here. But as you mentioned, to do nothing now with that first one, they're going to have to look at that stuff until this gets resolved. And we're not going to put a fence up. There's not going to be anything else. We have all their stuff piled there, so that's just going to be how it's going to be. And if we can't do anything more, I don't know what we would obviously lose our hobby shed for people to work, which would be a hardship for a lot of people. So hopefully you guys consider it, and I'm glad we are continuing it, because I think we can find a resolution in the end. Thank you.
I hope so.
Is there anybody that would like to speak on behalf of this application?
Is William Webster still here? Okay, and I had David Reingold also. Is he? There you go.
This is on behalf of the courts,
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to all the arguments on both sides. Before, David Reingold, 9415 Blind Pass. I'm also the head of the pickleball committee, and pickleball shares the courts with tennis. We have an arrangement who can play when. I think probably some of you play both sports. The sheds are very important. We casually mentioned in that little shed we keep clay. They're bags of clay. There's 2,000 pounds of topsoil clay on each court. Now, when I order them, they come in bags. When it rains, and if it rains through the shed, we lose the investment in all that clay. So we need that. You can't store tools where you store the clay. So I hope you'll consider it. We need a new one. We need to protect all those tools. Plus, we fix things. We fix broken screens. We fix broken nets. Otherwise, we're going out and spending 500 times 7, which is a lot of money. So, and no one can see that but the residents. I get up every morning, open the door to my penthouse, take a look, and make sure the courts are still there. Last couple of days, it's been foggy, so they haven't been there. But Gary told me not to worry, so I hope you'll let us do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was all
Any
I had.
additional? No. All right, we'll close for public comment and open up for board discussion.
Is there anybody opposed to this? There's no one.
I think thankfully this is a very straightforward situation.
In the middle of their own property.
It's, yeah.
Let's.
And they need it. There's no question. That little sad little thing's got to go away.
Do we have a motion then?
Yes, on the case number 24105, I move that we allow them to build that shed.
Second.
Vice Chair Garshaw?
Yes.
Member Small?
Yes.
Member Causey?
Yes.
Member Core?
Yes.
Chair Chase?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Happy pickleball days. Does anybody have anything else for discussion? We have cases on tap for next month, Kristen?
The only case we actually have now is the continuation of this case. However, we are going to request, back in October, I think, of last year, we were asking for a status update of the red, white, and booze variance. So I will be reaching out to their council and requesting that they come and give us an update as the board requested.
Okay, fantastic. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, you can